Hey, listeners, before we get started on today's podcast, I just wanted to take a moment and mention today's sponsors. We have two sponsors today that make this podcast possible. So, first off, today's episode is brought to you by restaurant.com. With restaurants.com, you can save at thousands of restaurants across the country with just a few clicks. Their dining deals range from $5 to $100, never expire, and cost you a fraction of the face value. Dinner has never been easier with restaurant.com. Used for dine-in, takeout, or delivery. Restaurant.com is offering our listeners 50% off their next purchase by going to www.restaurant.com/podcast. That's www.restaurant.com/podcast for 50% off your next purchase. Restaurant.com is the best deal every meal. And our second sponsor today is the Pretentious Pickle Company, located on 190 Water Street right here in Plymouth. And if you're a pickle fan, you're going to love what they have. They do more than just your standard pickles. They have all sorts of vegetables pickled, everything you can imagine, from pickled green beans to pickled eggs, pickled Brussels sprouts, you name it, they have it pickled. It's all made right there on location by the owner, Lorraine. It's phenomenal stuff. And they also have a lot of locally made products from local farmers and bakers and whatnot. So if you're in Plymouth, make sure you check out the Pretentious Pickle Company on Water Street, or you can also check out the Pretentious Pickle online at www.pretentiouspickle.com, and you can place orders right there on the website. So thank you to our sponsors, and now let's get into the podcast. Welcome back, Inebri-ites. This is Andy of the Inebri-art podcast, and I'm still recording from my home due to COVID restrictions and just trying to generally be safe. Today, I'm actually very excited. I met today's guest actually years and years ago before I even really had heard of him. I met him in person just kind of by chance, and today I am happy to have on the show Vermin Supreme. Welcome to the show, man.
Well, thank you, Andy Driscoll. It's great to be here. I must say that I'm a little surprised that you're alive. I did a little bit of Googling on Andy Driscoll and podcast, and everything told me that Andy Driscoll was deceased. My condolences to the family of the other Andy Driscoll, who apparently was also a journalist.
He was also a podcast? That's weird.
He was quite a famous journalist, apparently, who passed in 2014.
No kidding.
But look him up.
Yeah, I'll have to. I've looked up my name before, and it's always like a soccer player and some just random people, but I've never heard that one before. I'll have to check into that.
Oh, yes. No, add the word journalist or media, and comes right up.
So we've never really had a...
Hey, kids! Hi, how you doing? It's me, Vermin Supreme. I'm on the internet. I'm on the screen here in the studio. I'm broadcasting from my home because that's where I live. It makes life a lot easier.
So
anyway,
I've never had a political guest on before, and I feel like you're a good first political guest to have on. I do have some questions in general because, I mean, if you're not going to talk politics in 2020, I feel like that's all we do. But you have always touted that you have a zombie preparedness plan and that you're the only candidate to have one. Do you feel like that would have helped you in the COVID situation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, COVID's just a warm up. I mean, facts be told. I mean, the CDC is certainly prepared for the zombie apocalypse. They've put out government issued documents to that effect. Yes, of course, as a candidate, I was indeed pledging, and I do pledge, of course, that in order to deal with this COVID crisis, if you will, that number one, I will make COVID-19 against the law. If I find you in possession of COVID-19, you will be considered a criminal and dealt with harshly. Number two, I will be creating COVID-free zones because that has proven time and time again to be extremely effective keeping drugs and guns out of such free zones. So if we were able to declare a COVID-free zone, then we wouldn't have to worry about it so much. Also, in tying into my time travel platform Plank, of course, I do pledge to go back in time and kill baby COVID before he can start his life of COVIDness. Now, of course, Spike Cohen, my VP, wanted to know why we couldn't just like, take COVID-19 and treat him really nice and get him some proper art instruction or something. But no, I believe COVID-19. And last but not least, of course, I intend to build a antimicrobial, antiviral, microscopic wall around America. And we will follow this up with a moat. I'm going to dig a moat around the country and fill it with hand sanitizer. And I believe that should keep us completely safe from the COVID-19 coronavirus.
Now, Vermin, that sounds like that'd be really costly. Who's going to pay for this microscopic wall and moat?
COVID-19 will pay for it.
Oh, okay. That makes perfect sense. I kind of forgot about your time travel platform. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Time travel has been a very long-running plank with the intent of utilizing said time travel to go back in time and kill baby Hitler and any other tyrants that get in my way, especially when they're babies. It's a good time to nip it in the bud, if you will. Ultimately, of course, it is more of a boondoggle, knowing full well that such technology is extremely unlikely to be a thing, and so therefore, essentially, it's an R&D project, and it's gonna be like Star Wars in a way, a little less like the drone wars, because the drone wars actually became a thing, but by spreading the technology and the components that make the technology possible across the country and throughout every congressional district. And so therefore certain number of jobs will be involved in the overarching meta part of it, whether it actually works or not, much like that fighter jet that seems to never work or be produced, but it seems to have such a life in all these different congressional districts, whereby the workers and the people working for it, it's the jobs, and there's so much tied up into it. It's so ultimately it's more of a just a reason to spend lots of taxpayer money on the time travel industrial complex.
Now, maybe
I shouldn't have said that.
In the possibility that it becomes successful, do you have an age in mind for when you would go back and kill baby Hitler? And do you think that would cause issues with the abortion debate?
I'm not sure where you're going with that, or where you're coming from, or the absolute tie-in. Although I will say it is very interesting that because naturally the going back in time to kill baby Hitler is a platform plank that I essentially cribbed or stole or cribbed, if you will, from your standard ethics course exam. It's a thought piece, and would you go back in time and kill baby Hitler? And of course, you have to consider the ethical consequences. But I decided it would be a worthwhile platform plank to try and make happen, and it became such a part of the zeitgeist that Jeb Bush in 2016 was asked if he was going to go back, if he would go back in time and kill baby Hitler. He answered that he would. I'm the only candidate who says that I will. But in related news, Ben Carson, and bringing it back to your follow-up question, was actually asked if he would go back in time and abort baby Hitler. And Ben Carson refused to do that. Obviously, well, we draw our own conclusions, I guess. I don't have to spell it out for you. So
So these are the things you're kind of most known for, and now you're running for Senate. How did that come about? Was that something that you sought to do, or were you approached by that, or by them to run?
well, once again, I think a lot has to do with uh, essentially I've been running for president for some 30 years. By Mainly by piggybacking and hopping onto the New Hampshire primary, and um, I've been running this essentially facetious, satirical, humorous, Dada inspired, surreal, Discordian type of campaign, which utilizes these um, planks that are not necessarily based in reality, I guess. I mean, I'm willing to admit that, but offering a level of resonance with the people. People really, really respond to these ideas of zombie power and time travel and mandatory toothbrushing laws and um, free ponies for all Americans, of course. And they've had such a success, and adding that to wearing the rubber boot on my head, if you will, utilizing these simple yet elegant and extremely effective devices as a communication strategy, which has allowed me to exponentially amplify my free speech voice. It has allowed me to communicate with millions of people across the planet and interface with media across the flat Earth. And so this 30 years of inserting myself into the national political dialogue, and of course it's very clear by finding this very small niche, running for president, um, that is why it was so effective. I found this little crack in the wall and was able to work it, if you will, and as a result of that, I was able to achieve a level of notoriety and a audience and a reach and a reservoir of political capital and goodwill that I was able to make a legitimate offer to the Libertarian Party this last election year, as to why I would be their best bet as a presidential candidate. And it wasn't my idea, quite frankly. It was my campaign manager, Desiree Lindsay, out of Texas, who reached out to me over 2 years ago now and asked me if I was interested in running a more serious campaign. And so I felt that it was such a natural extension, continuation, outgrowth of what I had been doing, that I felt it was a worthwhile endeavor to explore. And so I did indeed offer my services as a candidate, as the nominee to the Libertarian Party. Now, it was certainly a hard sell. It was, it was a bit of an uphill battle because what we were offering was indeed so unusual and sort of unheard of. I mean, asking them to give me a carte blanche to be a maniac on their behalf and a crazy person on stage selling the libertarian message. And we created our entire contextualization campaign, which was called In on the Joke, hashtag In on the Joke, because many people were concerned that I was making a joke of the party, or that I would make a joke of the party. And I was trying to explicitly explain to people who were concerned that owning the joke, by being ahead of the joke, that the party would not have become the joke. By owning it, they would have been ahead of it, and it would essentially have been, they would have had to put out a statement to the effect of, yes, we're the Libertarian Party, very serious party, we've done very serious things, we're a very, very serious platform. However, the duopoly electoral presidential process has risen to the level of a joke, and with love and with spite, here's Vermin Supreme. And they kicked me on stage, and I wreak havoc to the delight of millions, so we had a campaign staff because it was a specific, it was a real campaign. We were actually seeking the nomination. So we had people from the left side of the party, from the right side of the party, who were convinced that utilizing this nonlinear messaging technique was indeed a real desirable way. And so as a result of that, I took part in like libertarian debate after libertarian debate. I attended state convention after state convention. We raised more money than I had spent on all of my previous 30 years of campaigning combined. So it was a very unique experience. I mean, I was doing these debates where the question would roll in, and I would have to find this balance of humor because that's what I'm known for and what I like to be, and serious because that's what they required. And so I would have to open with a quip and then pivot to the more serious things that they wanted to hear. So that was a real stretch for me as a communicator, to bring it back to fully reality based, and when you're in that position, not only are you trying to answer the questions in a way that is proper for the audience, but you have to do it in a way that is so you are so full of authority on it. And it's like a lot of times I would just be like, talking out my ass, trying to sound as if I knew what I was talking about in a way that it made sense in real time. I mean, I love the improv part of my usual campaign because it's anything can happen. It's interaction with real candidates, interaction with supporters and detractors and the media, and it gives me incredible leeway. It gives me a huge carte blanche, a license to do almost anything. Which of course, I try to use very responsibly and wisely. And so I did not receive the nomination. And at that point, I did not receive the nomination when the delegates chose Joe Jorgensen. I essentially stopped being a serious candidate and reverted to being more of a pretend candidate. Now, the 10 days before the election, the primary in New England, or in Massachusetts specifically, a friend of mine, Derek, sent me a ballot selfie of the Libertarian Party ballot, and he filled my name in every slot because it was a blank ballot. Because the Libertarian Party did not qualify with the signatures to get anybody on the ballot. So I decided to run this sort of lousy, half-ass, last-minute run for the Senate seat primary, and it was very, very interesting. What happened was we sent out a press release. We had one interested reporter from NBC 10, NECN out of Boston, and we did a video interview, which he edited down and made a really nice package and put it out there. And as a result of that story, the Associated Press wrote an article or a story about the video interview and put that out on the wire. A copywriter wrote the headline. Copywriter wrote the headline: "Vermin Supreme Satirist runs mock campaign for Senate." And that went out in far and wide, dozens of newspapers across the country and probably around the world. I saw, Virginia, Virgin Islands, and Canada, and all across the country. And the interesting thing for me was, number one, it said, Vermin Supreme runs a mock campaign. Okay, so that begs the question: why are you covering it?
Yeah.
Why is a story? And it's the total equivalent of man pretends to do something, and that's the exact Supreme is pretending to run for Senate, and yet it became a newsworthy thing. So that tickled me pick, and I think it's pretty funny that that yes, I have reached this level of being known for being a prankster and a silly candidate, and that it becomes news even when I pretended to do something. Wacky, huh?
Do you worry that when you have something poignant to say that they won't take you seriously? Is that ever like a concern because of, if you were to run, they still call it a mock campaign, whether you're serious or not? But are you concerned if you have a voice on a particular issue that?
Ultimately, I believe no. I believe that I I would say not. It is my experience, my belief that most people do get it. They get what I'm doing. They get that it's supposed to be funny, that it's satirical, and and I've never had any problem dropping the pretense or the breaking the character and communicating from my heart and explaining exactly what it is that I'm doing. Deconstructing things is obviously what I'm doing. I'm deconstructing politics, politicians, and the political process. And I have no problem deconstructing my deconstruction and talking about. And so, in any sort of long-term interview, um, you'll see that's true. Sort of shorter term, if it's a few minutes long, I mean, it tends to be more shtick, straight shtick,
Yeah.
rolling through because it's wacky, crazy, funny, and people really respond to it. And what I do certainly it operates on a number of different levels. It always has. Some people are like, "Oh, Vermin, what you do? It's so important. It's like it's so incredibly important for democracy. Keep on doing it." And other people are like, "Jesus, that guy is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. He has a boot on his head. What an idiot." Um, and everybody's right, and everybody's perception is absolutely correct in their own interpretation. All I know is that I act as if though, and I do believe that I have constituents. I believe that I am doing what I do on behalf of people who appreciate it, who enjoy it, who think it's funny, who love it. I am the audience that I have. The kids are amazing. And when I was trying to make my sell to the libertarians, I started to try and figure it out a little bit, and it's like kids are naturally authoritarian,
Mm-hmm.
kids are naturally nonconformist, and kids love humor. And I think those are some of the reasons that I'm popular, or that people tend to enjoy what I do. When I got viral in 2012, it was interesting because what I did, when I glitter bombed Randall Terry and introduced all the wacky things onto the debate stage, um, it was not perceived to be partisan. I wasn't attacking a party or a candidate. And so it was received very widely across the political spectrum for what it was, a critique of the system. And I found myself with a much wider and audience that was much broader and a lot. Some of it really propelled me into sort of mainstream a little bit.
Yeah.
And it also but my fan base is also in the fringes, far right and far left, even in places that I don't even like being. Um, and that's interesting. And because I'm a political figure now, like a normal type of non-political figure, an entertainer or something, yes, they probably have fans across the spectrum and some horrible fans on the far edges,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't know about it. It doesn't occur to you. But because I'm a political figure, and pretty open about my politics, um, it becomes very clear how many horrible people follow me on Twitter, for example, and hate what I do politically. It's like I think a lot of people have an appreciation for what I do artistically, but
Yeah.
might really, really despise me because of how they believe I am politically, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah, and I mean, I've seen that with other performers recently. I know the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine said he was kind of taken aback when he spoke out about Black Lives Matters, and fans started saying they were going to boycott them. And he's like, "What machine did you think we were raging against?" He's like, "It's always been the system."
I know. Like when Paul Ryan mentioned Rage Against the Machine as one of his favorite bands. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's like you missed the boat on that. I don't think you got that. So you mentioned that the system's
I
broken.
heard that
Oh,
one of the songs at Donald. Oh, sorry.
you broke up there for a second. Sorry.
I was just going to insert that at a recent recent Donald Trump rally, um, he walked on to the song "Fortunate Son" by Creedence Clearwater, which is a very
Yeah.
powerful song that would not be appropriate. Well, very appropriate, but I'm sorry, I did not hear your question. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. So you were saying how that the system's broken, and I feel like a lot of people would agree with that. Like, what do you think we can do to change the system itself to make it better for everybody?
Well, just keep on working on it. I am an anarchist. I have come originally from the left anarchist perspective and tradition, Kropotkin and mutual aid. I think mutual aid is a critically important thing that we must practice. Of course, as an anarchist, and I mean, the nice fit for me about the Libertarian Party was that it is a party of anarchists and minarchists attempting to dismantle the state. So that was a nice fit for me. Um, Ultimately, I believe that in order to be able to disengage from the need for government, I believe that we need to um, build up our communities and build up the uh, structures and infrastructures and replace or provide alternatives for the services that the government attempts to deliver, oftentimes in a grossly inefficient fashion with unintended consequences. So yeah, I think it's just really building up our stronger families and stronger communities. Lessen the need for government. Um, and I believe it just is going to continue taking direct action, of course, because I mean, the reality is we are under control, for lack of better concept, of the government and the police state and the surveillance state that all seem to be working hand in hand. And we have environmental collapse and extreme weather events and riots in the streets. And of course, ultimately, I believe that the demonstrations and the protests are another way that the people are demanding change. Obviously, things have gone just so far with the lack of police accountability. Um, I like to see a little bit more professionalism in my occupying forces. Maybe that's just me. Um, but yeah, I think there's people have perhaps reached a point where there is a realization that things need to change. And interestingly enough, it seems that in some instances that people have been able to apply enough pressure rapidly through taking it to the streets that there has indeed been some responses and some defunding of police and reallocation of sources. Even like I was running for president. Of course, when you're running for president, especially as a libertarian, it's like and I think it's an issue with libertarians in general. Like the libertarian platform. I mean, it's statist. It recognizes the existence of a state. It's a political party. Where obviously, uh, it recognizes these things. In addition to not recognizing their legitimacy, perhaps. But just the fact that we can try and make these changes happen through political channels. I mean, I'm a realist. We live in the real world, and obviously we can't totally. I mean, we can try and operate underneath the government's radar. I think that's something that we all strive to do in our day to day. And that's sort of like what I always enjoyed about my type of social anarchy is that it does exist. It exists every day. Anytime that we as a group decide to come together and make something happen, make a project, have a food co-op or a collective bookstore, or any number of things where we just come together and figure it out how to make it ourselves, how to make it happen ourselves. I go to the rainbow gatherings. Are you familiar with the rainbow gatherings?
What's up with the rainbow gatherings? I'm not familiar with that.
The Oh, okay. Let me tell you a little bit about the Rainbow Family of Living, Love, and Light.
Okay.
Not a cult, although we do allow cults to attend. And essentially, it is a non-organization that has been gathering on the land for over 50 years. Anywhere between 5 and 10,000 people have gathered annually in a national forest somewhere in America. And imagine, if you will, that there are 4,000 people sitting in concentric circles in a giant meadow in the middle of a national forest, a beautiful day. Everybody has their cup, everybody has their bowl, they're just chitting and chatting and waiting for dinner. And then, as if on cue, out of the tree line, out of the forest, from up to 100 different kitchens that might be in the forest, comes people bringing 5-gallon foods of buckets towards the circle, and they start serving the people, and everybody gets a delicious several course meal. Some people might not get enough, but there are lessons to be learned.
Mhm.
And not everybody gets the same thing, and but there's just like, and at this time, as the buckets are going around and people are being fed and starting to eat, people go around with information, town criers, if you will, letting people know health and safety information, helping them know that what the parking situation is on the road, what the police situation might be, where the drum jams are, where the talent shows are for the night, any number of things that might be going on. And then there's a little parade, a musical parade, and that is accompanied by a magic hat. And the magic hat goes around, and the magic hat is where people throw their money in. Because it is a non-commercial event, you can't buy anything, you can't sell anything, and so therefore the only way that you can show your appreciation for the event, there's no charge to get in, is throw your money in the hat. It's a spiritual money laundering, if you will. So that money goes around, and then it goes to the middle of the circle, where the banking council counts it and announces how much was taken in. The banking council is open to anyone. Anybody can. It's completely transparent. And essentially, the way the next morning, the kitchen council comes together. Representatives from all the kitchens come together to discuss whatever issues they might have. Put together their shopping list. They interface with the supply council. Supply council gets the money from banking council, go to town, get the supplies and groceries, bring it back, distributes it, and then the circle happens again night after night for about 2 weeks every year. It's an incredible infrastructure. Miles of water hose go up to springs that have been tapped to bring healthy water to the kitchens. And as you can imagine, many things have to happen to make this happen. Stoves have to be built, to be dug, shitters have to be dug, shitters have to be filled, vegetables have to be chopped, food has to be carried, wood has to be sawed, fires have to be kept, and there's like everything that happens that makes these events happens because people come together and they see the need for something to happen, and they voluntarily come together and make that happen. There are no leaders, other than in the sense that somebody might have more skills in doing something, and so they can show you how to do something better. And other than that, it is a non-hierarchical operation. It's an anarchistic organism by nature. It doesn't identify as one, but I believe that it exists as one. So that's where I learned a lot. When I first started doing my thing, that's where I learned to be able to do my clowning. It was always funny, a little bit of entertaining, but Rainbow was definitely where I went from end of camp to end. And the camp might stretch out a couple miles sometimes. I go from hundreds of different camps, the theme camps that happen there every year, and practice my making people laugh.
That sounds
And
amazing.
my master. Oh, it is truly. And we have stages and talent shows and gong shows, and so I would host those events and start doing that stuff. And then after a few years, I realized that one of the other functions that we provide for ourselves as a community is security. And so I became a lot more aware of that and started to interface in that. And we call ourselves Shante Sina, which is a Sanskrit uh, stolen word, but it means peacekeeper. And so I was in, essentially, it's a lot of crisis intervention. A
Yeah.
lot of it is just smoothing things out. And sometimes some real heavy things happen. And it's essentially glorified camp counseling.
Yeah.
And depending on the situation, depends on the level of response. Everybody at camp is supposed to take some responsibility for it, just to keep things going. But some people have more experience and a better head for it. And so one of the things that we provide is escorts for media to help them contextualize what they're experiencing,
Hmm.
and cops. And so, as a younger person, I would spend, a full day, 8-hour shift, walking with 8, 10, 12 or more cops, state troopers, federal cops, local cops, county cops. It just all depended. Of course, there's a somewhat oppositional nature between the gatherers and the authorities. The National Forest Service spends up to $1 million a year in an incident command team of fully uh, armed badass asswipes that come in to give us a hard time and create incidents. And so I would spend all this, 8 hours a day, walking with the cops. We shout "six up" to let people know that, oh, the cops are here. Hide, put that joint out,
Right.
release your dog, or whatever. But I would make fun of the cops. I would have fun with the cops, and I would propagandize the cops, and I would spend this time attempting to uh, contextualize what they were seeing, keep them out of trouble, try and get them to mutiny, whatever. So that gave me a lot of practice doing that, and of course, I always felt like people had my back all the time. I've been arrested more times at rainbow gatherings than anywhere else, just
Mhm.
because I feel so comfortable that I'm able to distract the cops from another situation if I feel that's is necessary, and get myself arrested to get them out of there. And so I've done that a couple times, several times, more than several. And so that's where I learned many of the skills and that I was able to bring out into Riot World, into the demonstrations, and using humor in the bullhorn to de-escalate tense situations. I observed that there was always this space between protesters and police that was a vacuum, and anything could happen. And after a while, I became pretty comfortable inserting myself into that space to try and disperse tense situations through humor, but also offering health and safety advice to the crowd, trying to avoid crowd panic, um, trying to let the police know what I expect of them in terms of riot control, reading riot control manuals and such things. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's I guess there's a lot to what I do, but I guess it's also pretty simple.
Yeah. I think it's amazing what you're doing. And what I think makes you so able to connect with people is that split between you have serious issues that you want to address, but the humor. I mean, nobody wants to be preached at all the time. If you can crack a few jokes and make someone smile, I think it's easier to bridge that gap.
Absolutely, and I think satire is a valid way of trying to bring out points. I was talking about the mandatory toothbrushing law and dental reeducation centers and preventive dental maintenance detention facilities and secret dental police, before the Patriot Act. before 9/11, and as a means to just let people know that scary shit was here.
Yeah, and just some of the things. I mean, just with facial recognition and whether you like Apple or not, Apple has kind of tried to stand up to law enforcement by saying they're not going to help you hack into their phones. I mean, it's a weird time that we live in, and then I think it's only going to get weirder.
I'm afraid so. And we're, election around the corner. Anything could happen. I mean, these are really anything could happen type of reality that we are in right now, and thus the importance of really getting tight with your family and your community and support system and networks. And the plug could be pulled at any time. The collapse could happen, or the clampdown could happen. Obviously, I mean, California in the blink of an eye, entire towns
They're
and,
just
and
gone. Yeah,
villages gone, wiped out, and of course, the climate crisis and political refugees, and it's it's a mess. It's a freaking. But ultimately, so and for that, it can be overwhelming. And obviously, there's a lot of mental health issues, just people trying to process all this stuff going on. I mean, I heard a stat that 1 out of 4 kids were just the thought of offing themselves passed through their mind. And that's terribly frightening. So I think it's very, very important that we really keep an eye out for one another and try and make sure that all our friends are okay, and that at least we pretend that we think we'll be okay and everything will be okay, even though we have our doubts.
right. Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to plant a tree, and I will never live to sit in the shade of that tree, but I am going to do that anyway. I mean, we do have to, it's very uncertain. Obviously, it's very uncertain, and uncertainty makes people anxious, and anxiety it sucks. I mean, in the past, I've had episodes of anxiety and linked with what for a short period of time it was depression flat out, and
yeah,
it's a very dark place, and it's very hard to get out of, and so many people that we know are experiencing these bad chemicals running through their brain, which was ultimately what I was able to finally tease it out in a way that made sense, and I was able to pull myself back or step aside, or whatever it was that I was able to eventually do. Um, so yeah, good
yeah.
times. Hate to be a buzzkill.
No, man,
We're all doomed. We're all gonna die.
it's I suffered through some pretty severe depression when this like all kicked off, and it's taken me a few months to kind of get back on my feet. I think it's reassuring to hear someone in a position like yourself have a similar situation. I think that's what people need and want to hear, that a politician's just human.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was truly one of the darkest places I'd ever been. It was one of the hardest times on my relationship with my wife. It was brutal. It was really brutal, and I was able to figure it out and work through it. And anybody who needs that help, however you get it, whether it's an antidepressant, which I don't fall. I mean, obviously you want to be careful when you're mucking around with your brain chemistry because of those side effects.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you feel suicidal? Here, take this pharmaceutical. Oh, one of the side effects
It's suicide.
might make you feel suicidal.
Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta be careful, but and what when you're feeling better and what makes you feel worse, and ideally you can talk it out, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's too hard to make that happen, or just impossible. And luckily, there are some medicines that can help people.
Well, all good advice. It makes me jittery, man. Like I gotta say, my vice is alcohol. Cannabis makes me jittery.
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to like to drink, but
Mm.
almost nothing these days. I think when I turned 40, my metabolism changed, and the alcohol just I didn't want it or didn't attract me to it or something. It's still fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes I'll have a few drinks and say, "Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, oh this is fun." But it was like a psychedelic. I used to I did those quite a bit, but when I was much younger, when I was like in my late teens and early 20s, and I loved them so much, and they did the job. They did the trick. They did the reset. They allowed me to have an understanding of reality that I take to with me to this day. That has allowed me to not be afraid to appear to be sillier than anything, and have people have fun and make joy.
Well,
Um,
Vermin, this I
but now,
definitely had fun with
definitely
this.
just weed.
This was an absolute pleasure. Can give us your socials or websites and all that self promotional type stuff. And
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, first, I am on Cameo.
oh, you're on Cameo?
You know Cameo?
Oh, I do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm I'm on Cameo now. I am totally on. I'm on Cameo. $25. I'll say what you want. What a bargain!
That's amazing.
I've been wanting to be on Cameo for a while, but Josh Dial, who's the libertarian from the Tiger King, real life, and then the TV
Oh,
show, I
yeah, yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, Yes, he endorsed me over on the election during the primary, and he was on it. And I asked him how, and he hooked me up. And so if you need me to say like happy birthday or something to somebody, a fan, we can do that. So anyway, that's exciting because that's new. Of course, there is iPony, a blueprint for a new America, and this is a book. It's a book about the future long after a Vermin Supreme presidency, after everybody has their pony, after zombie power fuels the nation, after the secret police have set checkpoints every couple hundred yards. It is a warning from the people of the future to you, the people of their past, your present, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. That's available at iPonybook.com. The podcast that you might want to check out is called Let This Podcast Run Your Life. That is a podcast that is the spin-off of Team Supreme, or part of Team Supreme, which was a spin-off of my campaign team of all these talented, amazing people who are working on it. Check out the Vermin not the no forget the is implied. It's not part of the name. But check out Vermin Supreme Institute.com. Now, what is the Vermin Supreme Institute? I hear you asking yourself. Essentially, what we did is we put the word institute into my name, and now it's a real thing. The real Vermin Supreme, at the real Vermin Supreme on TikTok, at Vermin Supreme on Twitter, Vermin Supreme President, blue check mark on Facebook. That was my presidential site, but now my Senate site. Didn't change it at all. Vermin Supreme, VerminSupreme2020.com. I think we have Reddit, a Discord, and yeah, and on YouTube. Oh, YouTube, Vermin Supreme. And you should check out the In on the Joke while we were trying to let the people know why they shouldn't be afraid of running a joke.
Awesome, Vermin. That broke up quite a bit, but so I'm going to add some of those links in on the show notes so we can make sure our listeners get that, even though it was a little choppy here and there, but technology is what it is. And I just want to say thank you for doing this. This is amazing. And
okay. Yeah.
And you have my vote, and hopefully our listeners will be voting for you as well. And
remember, the road to Ponytopia will not be easy. Not all of us will make it. There will be sacrifices, human sacrifices. But let me assure you this. The road to Ponatopia will be paved with the glitter-encrusted skulls of our vanquished foes. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or on Instagram at Inebri-art6. You can email us at Inebri-art@yahoo.com. And make sure you listen to the other podcasts on the Inebri-art Podcast Network, including Bar Talk, Old Colony Cast, Retro Redoctopus, America's Hometown Horror Podcast, and our newest one, Theme Park Legends, a podcast about working at theme parks. What else? And we'll catch you again next time.